You once said the biggest transformation wasn't losing 30 kilos, it was losing the guilt attached. Can you run me through the realization of like what that actually meant?
The biggest loss was definitely the guilt when it comes to food. And as you could relate, coming from a Lebanese background, food is at the core of everything that we do. We're not short of delicious food. So growing up, had access to incredible food. My mum is an incredible cook. You know, every celebration, any moment really, there was always really good food on the table, which is an absolute blessing. And unfortunately, it put me in a position where I was just carrying way too much weight at the time. So in my childhood, and the only way I knew to lose the weight was to restrict myself and to remove all of the food that I loved, which includes all the bread and the rice and the sweets that we would typically eat, you know, in our culture. And so for so many years, I had restricted myself and deprived myself of all of the things that I loved. And it wasn't until I became educated on nutrition that I finally sat down for the first time after many years and had just a ham and mayonnaise sandwich, which it sounds so basic, but to someone who hadn't had bread for over 3 years, it was a moment of where I was like, wow, I finally have food freedom. And so I remember sitting in my car and I took a bite of this sandwich and I just started crying. And you should never feel like you need to cry because of food. Like that's just ridiculous. But it was at that moment that I thought I feel like I finally broken free from this and I finally don't have that guilt attached to food anymore. And for me, it just changed my journey from there on because you know, I think it's one thing to lose 30 kilos, but it's another to keep it off for over 10 years. And the reason why I've kept it off for over 10 years was because I don't have that guilt attached with food anymore and I get to enjoy the food that I love every single day. So what I do and how I lost the weight was sustainable and I continue to do it and follow the philosophy that, you know, I lost the weight with every single day.
Yeah, I really get that, especially coming from a Lebanese household where it's like food it's probably one of the, I'm biased, but it is one of the most amazing cuisines you can just eat from. And then going from that to not eating bread for 3 years, it's like a clear psychological play there. Um, I, d- I've heard that you were borderline diabetic at 16. Was that true?
Yeah, it was. And back then, it was the reason why I started my transformation journey. So I never once looked in the mirror and thought that I was carrying too much weight. I think I just had the confidence of a 16-year-old. I did get a little bit bullied at school, so people would, you know, make fun of me. And even though they were just my friends, there were always comments about my weight, but I never took it seriously. And I just went in for a routine check, got my bloods done, got checked by my GP. So it was very confronting to hear that I was borderline diabetic because I wasn't going in with feeling any sort of symptoms or way about my weight or my health. It was really just a general checkup. And when my results came back in and he sat me down and he said, you've got two paths. You can take medication for the rest of your life or you can do something about your weight and, you know, your body. And of course, I went with the latter because being 16 and hearing that you could potentially be taking medication for the rest of your life is not something that you want to hear. And so I took action, I made a change, and I've managed to keep it off for all that time.
Yeah, there is such a big difference between like getting in shape and staying in shape. And it require, oh man, I can tell you, well, initially, like I just came out of a very intense cut as well. And knowing how, well, I was faced with the initial diagnosis of you're going to be borderline obese. So it was a kind
Wow.
of different situation. And that shock factor, like for me, I wanted to lose it as soon as possible. Um, how was your mindset, like in that moment when you heard it? Like, what was your initial reaction? What were you trying to do there?
Oh, we're talking what, like 15 years ago now? So it's such a long time. Can't even remember how I felt yesterday. But I think it was deflating because at that age, you know nothing about nutrition or exercise, really. They don't really teach you that at school. And so when you're told that you need to lose weight as a child, that feeling is just like, what? Like, what do you mean I need to lose weight? How do I even lose weight? Back then, it was like you would connect to a computer with like dial up internet and your parents would scream at you because no one could call the house phone,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
internet access was limited, resources were limited, knowledge was limited. And so you're like, well, the only way to lose weight is if I don't eat. because you put on weight by eating. That's essentially what we were
Mm.
taught, or that's what, society thought was how you would lose weight. And so it was just really scary and daunting that I had to embark on that journey because I didn't know what to do. And of course, it's different now because there are so many solutions out there. Enjoyable solutions, not that any weight loss journey is enjoyable, but I guess more accommodating and more supportive of, food freedom and so on. But back then it was just like, where do I start? And so I
Yeah.
did what I thought I should do, which was just starve myself, really.
I get that. Especially when I mean, I know coming from a Lebanese household, my mum, my teta, especially my grandma, she'd be like, you're too skinny, eat. Like eating and being large is a privilege coming from an immigrant household or maybe a more scarce background. Were there some similarities there?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, my parents couldn't understand why I was trying to lose weight. I remember I went vegetarian once and they took so much offense to it because they're
Yeah.
like, our ancestors were butchers. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what's that got to do with me choosing to be vegetarian? Like, it was
Yeah.
an insult to the family that I
Yeah.
decided to be vegetarian. And I did it for all the wrong reasons, right? It wasn't, an ethical reason. It was because I was trying to lose weight. So I thought, well, I'll give up meat. Which is
Mm.
so poor. It's a poor relationship with food. And so I did that for 8 months and the family just couldn't accept that. But then, when I got really thin, they were like, "You look sick." But then I'd put on a little bit of weight and they're like, "Oh, you look healthy." And then I think that they're telling me I look fat. So it's just like, I don't know. Maybe it's a culture thing where they always have to
Yeah.
comment on how you look and your
Yeah.
happiness tied together, like you said. But yeah, it's just food is everything. Like even my mum now, I've got, a niece and a nephew, and all she does is just feed them. She just cooks for them like bazella, shawarma, everything you can think of. And she just sends it in like bulk to them and says like, here, eat. But that's their way of showing love. They just love to cook.
Exactly. And growing up from that, especially like in childhood developmental psychology, in those early stages, if it's so heavily tied to food and even neurologically, where like food is our biological driver. Like if we're hungry, we tend to be more driven to do certain things. And yeah, for that to be so ingrained, I can only imagine how hard it would have been to kind of remove yourself from those beliefs.
Well, when you think about it, right, a lot of people go to food for comfort. And when you think about our very early stages as a newborn, when our mother wanted to soothe us, the first thing they would do is just put us on the nipple or give us a
Mm.
bottle. So food is a way of soothing. And so psychologically, we embed that as we're growing up as a newborn. And so when we are much older in life, we tend to resort to food for comfort because that's what we did when we were much younger. And people don't realize that there's an association and an attachment with, you know, that very early stage of, being a newborn. And so when people are like, I emotional eat, or I'm stressed and I eat, and I go to food when I'm feeling down, it really goes back to those very early stages of being a newborn and being fed to be soothed, really.
It is such deep programming, like in reality. And the best realization I made recently, especially when I have come from such an intense cut, and I talk to other people who have been in a very similar scenario, is because it's so deeply ingrained in our primal psychology, trying to kind of override it in a way is actually harmful. It takes so much headspace and a lot of it is cognitive frontal lobe instead of kind of working with it and knowing that I want to enjoy my food and it's so embedded into my psychology. Why don't I just make healthy food enjoyable?
Yeah, but even just having things in moderation. And I think that's the problem is that it's kind of like when the concept of you always want what you can't have, right? You want it even more. And so if you tell someone, hey, you can't have this chocolate bar, it's going to make you want it 10 times more. But if you say to them, well, you can have this chocolate bar every single day, but just have a row or have a single serve, they're probably not going to have it daily. They probably won't have it for a couple of weeks because they know they can have it whenever they want. But as soon as they know they can't have it, they're going to binge on it the minute that they actually can have it. And so it's less about, trying to make a healthier alternative. And I think it's always great to do that because you want to nourish your body and you want to give your body all the right micronutrients and macronutrients, high protein and so on, good fats and so on. But also it's about like, well, just have the chocolate. Like it's far better to enjoy, a single serve chocolate bar every single day than to binge on 1 to 2 blocks on the weekend. because one, for your mindset, your relationship with food, but the quantity that you consume is going to be far less when you look at it long term than if you're sitting there binging on it, because it's become like it's something that you don't have access to whenever you want. So yeah, it's just that mindset shift, really.
Completely. Even when I was going to the bodybuilding comp, I basically had to be really, really strict with my diet. And like you see it with every bodybuilder as well. Anyone who's gone through an intense cut, at the end, there's always that like cheat meal, or there's that like comfort food at the end. Um, and that is like, because you've been avoiding it for so long, you didn't want to have it for so long, and you all of a sudden like, this is finally what I can have. You basically want what you can't have, and unfortunately, when people go into really long cuts, it turns into almost like a spiral of binging. And I've seen it when I've been on heavy, intense cuts, it goes straight back up. I float up in weight and I go back down and I float up in weight. And I'm assuming that obviously didn't happen for you to have lost 30 and kept it off.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I'm curious to know what your go-to was after your show. What was the first meal that you had when you
It was pistachio cookies.
Really? That's so
Yeah.
that's so random. So back to what you just said, I actually prepped for multiple shows. I did fitness modeling for about, or bikini modeling. I wouldn't say fitness, bikini modeling for about 2 years in my journey. And my first show was clean eating and very restrictive, and my second show was very much balanced and counting calories and macronutrients while enjoying the foods that I loved. My first show, I rebounded significantly, and it's actually quite scary when I think back to that time, because I had this like Tupperware container, like a really big, like the storage ones when you're moving, the plastic containers. And I remember for the 6 months that I was prepping, whenever I saw something that I wanted, whether it was cookies or cereal or, you know, chips or whatever, I would put it in this Tupperware container for the day of like the show and then beyond, so that I had like the foods that I wanted, because I couldn't have it because I was restricted. It was, I had 5 food items that I could eat and nothing else outside of that. So I created this like Tupperware container, had Oreos and chocolates and everything. And so on show day, it was like massive, probably like half the size of my body. And I remember just binging on it, and I just felt so sick, and I just continued. It was like I did that, and then I went to Mary's Burgers, and then I went here and there and went for dessert, and like it just didn't stop, right? And the rebound was unbelievable, because when you're on such a restrictive diet, so when you're on a caloric restrictive diet, a deficit of a certain amount, your metabolism actually starts to adjust. And the way to avoid rebound is to actually reverse your metabolism back up to a state that's to your maintenance. You can't just go from a deficit to your maintenance, because your metabolism has adjusted to that number to actually operate at. And so I went from probably consuming 1,000 calories, maybe even less, to consuming over 3,000 a day. And of course, I was going to put on the weight. But then my second show, which I did very balanced and very sustainable, the lowest calories that I actually went on, because I did it mathematically and scientifically, was 1,500 calories. So it wasn't even a low deficit. I enjoyed ice cream every single day. So I had a low-fat ice cream. I made it fit my calories and macros. I ate my whole foods for my entire day, kangaroo mince, broccoli, eggs, yogurt, all, like all really great foods. And then for dessert, I would always have vanilla ice cream, because it was what my sweet tooth wanted. And going out of that show, there was no Tupperware container with junk food or anything like that. I literally just went to El Jana for dinner, and that was it. And that's because I hadn't dined out in the last 12 weeks, because when you're calorie counting and macro counting, everything matters to the gram when you're competing for your show. So I was weighing everything. I didn't want to take my scales out for dinner and blah, blah, blah. But I just went to El Jana and I had charcoal chicken as my meal post-comp, right? Which sounds crazy, but that shows the difference between the two approaches. And I didn't rebound. I actually maintained my physique from that point onwards, because the way that I'd actually done the cut going into my show was one that I could sustain. And then I successfully reverse dieted out. So I went from 1,500, 16, 17, all the way up to over 2,000 calories, very slowly and progressively. And I got there and I maintained at that point, and I got my metabolism back up to that high point in order for my body to enjoy that amount of food moving forward.
Oh, it's unreal. It's actually such a massive change in approach. And I feel like that is a lot more professional. It's a lot more technical because there is like a competition on the line. But I feel like that mindset shift is applicable to basically anyone who's even thought about losing weight. And it's the shift between that short term, I need to lose it now, to, okay, let me think actually a few months down the track, maybe a few years down the track. If I do this now, will I hurt myself after I'm done? And it's just shifting that just a bit further. Everything changes. What you eat,
Yeah.
how you approach it.
And I think David as well, I think the difference between the two approaches is that I was flying blind when I was clean eating. I didn't actually know what I was consuming. So I didn't know what my calories and my macronutrients were. It was just clean eating. It was, very restrictive, just eat this and that's it. Whereas when I was tracking my calories and my macros, weighing everything, and it was very balanced, the results of my physique going into that was far greater. I got to 9% body fat as a female, which is like very low. And I had like a full 8-pack. And that's really because I was tracking everything that went into my mouth. I knew exactly what I needed. So if I didn't lose weight or my body fat percentage wasn't shifting or whatever it may be, I was fluctuating on the scales, I knew exactly what was causing it. Whereas my first show, I had no idea. I couldn't understand why I was just like very skinny and didn't hold much muscle, because I'm just like, well, okay, it makes sense now. I was under eating significantly. I was burning through muscle mass. I can understand what happened there, but I didn't at the time because I wasn't tracking the numbers that I needed to. So it's twofold, right? It's one, it's enjoying the process and having that sustainability and that balanced approach. But then there's also like understanding what's going on with your body and making changes when things aren't actually going as planned, because it's science. There's no guessing. And that's what frustrates me. It's like people try and lose weight. They're like, well, I'm not losing weight and I'm doing this and I'm cutting that. And it's like, well, tell me how many calories you're consuming. What's your protein? How many calories have you been on this? What are you tracking? How are you tracking it? Are there discrepancies in your tracking? Are you weighing your food? There's just a number of things where when they can't answer that, it's like, well, I can tell you why you're not losing weight.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
can
then you come
completely tell that.
deflated. Yeah, and
No,
it's a
of course.
cycle, right?
Yeah,
It's a
yeah, yeah.
cycle.
Yeah, yeah. And it doesn't help each other. It is literally
No,
a spiral that keeps it
yeah.
going down. And I'm assuming you speak to a lot of females that join EQ, and also like the idea of 80% whole food, 20% soul food, that also plays into being aware of what those are and how much of it you're having. Is that a conversation you have often?
Yeah, I do. And it's what we, preach when it comes to our clients at EQ. And 80%, the 80-20 approach can be so different for everyone, right? Some people may want that 80-20 in their day, and some people want that 80-20 over their week. And it really is just what works for you. So 80-20 for me means that, my whole day is filled with whole foods, and then I get to enjoy dessert every single night. Whereas for some people, they prefer to, Monday to Friday, make sure that they're having their whole foods, they're nourishing their body. And then on the weekends, they enjoy a dine out meal here and there, maybe breakfast on Saturday, and then they go out and have a burger for dinner on the Sunday, whatever it may be. It's really what works for you when it comes to 80-20, but it's allowing your body, but also your soul, to enjoy the foods that you love. So giving yourself that 20%, it's like, yes, eat all of the things you need to nourish your body, because that is fundamentally the most important thing. But also don't forget about your cravings and, your soul food, and give yourself that 20% because you absolutely need it in your journey.
And it's a great shift to know that once you stop that heavy restriction, you end up choosing healthier foods anyway, or at least foods that are better for you. Or that is the shift that I experienced. Do you reckon that's like the standard now for everything you do?
Like as in the 80-20 approach, or just my balanced eating?
Yeah, that balanced eating approach.
Yeah, absolutely. I live and breathe it every single day. I have for the last 15 years. My life has completely changed. And it's, when I see online or I hear of people that are just doing these low calorie restrictive diets, it breaks my heart. And it's the reason why EQ exists today, was because I wanted to give that same food freedom to everyone else. I want everyone to have a positive relationship with food, because your transformation doesn't start from the outside in, it starts from the inside out. And if you don't work on this first and foremost, it doesn't matter what you do to get there, you will put the weight back on, because your mindset and your relationship with food is what is going to keep the weight off. And so we say to a lot of people, coming from these like restrictive diets and binge eating cycles, it's like, don't try and lose weight. don't worry about weight loss right now, because yes, you can lose the weight, but you're going to put it back on. We don't want a band-aid solution. We want you to build a better relationship with food first. And once you get to that point where food is not the enemy and you've made friends with food and you can enjoy food that you love in moderation, you don't binge, you don't think about food excessively, it's not on the top of mind all the time, then we embark on a weight loss journey, because I can tell you that that journey is going to be far more enjoyable, but you'll also sustain your results at the end of it as well, which is far more important.
Absolutely. It becomes internal as much as it is external, in that
Absolutely.
change as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's switch on some business gears on. The passion's definitely there. Like the purpose behind it, you going through that and wanting to help other people, that's some of the strongest fuel you can have to go through hard times. And I'm just going to state a few facts. 23, non-technical founder, and just quick Google, going straight into Silicon Valley. Like, what's going on there?
Yeah, it was, it wasn't the journey that I thought I would be on or the path that I would take, to be honest. So, growing up, I was always very career focused. So I, loved to work, started working the day that it was legal for me to worked at McDonald's, wanted to, have a really great career. My dad was an entrepreneur, so I think it like rubbed off onto me. I always wanted to do some sort of like business marketing. It was just what my
Mm-hmm.
passion was. So I studied a Bachelor of Commerce majoring in marketing and management at the University of Sydney. And then I was competing at the same time. So I was doing my comp prep, and then I had lost all the weight. So my co-founder and I were also, servicing and transforming people as well. So it was the start of EQ unofficially. So it was like a little side gig that we did. And, something had to give, that was growing. My studies were getting more intense. I was working full time and I was competing. And so it was like, okay, so like, you can't do all four at the same time. So kept my full-time job, deferred my degree, stopped competing, and focused on working and then building this business, which we didn't know was a business at the time. It was really just, us wanting to help people and transform them the way that we had transformed our lives. And then it just started to grow. And for us, we're like, okay, so we're making income from this. It needs our full attention and energy. We need to just take the leap. It wasn't like we were making significant amount to be able to take on the business full time so that our salaries were covered by the income that the business was making. It was that we had saved so much money that we were like, look, if we were to take a hit now, we can, because we can absolutely afford to. So let's just give it that 6 months. Let's just go to the US, because that's what we thought we had to do. Let's just go to the US and just see what happens. So it was funny because the day that we actually quit our jobs at Google, it was like no words were exchanged in person. And because we both were working at Google at the time, it was a message that my co-founder that said to me, she's like, I just quit. It's your turn. And I was sitting in a meeting with my manager at the time. I was like, oh, okay. So that's it. Like, we're doing it. And we did. And it was scary. And, going into the unknown is scary for anyone. And we booked a flight to the US, so a one-way ticket, and we just thought the US was going to have all the answers. And it's funny because it did. And my partner actually asked me this the other day. He's like, so why did you come back? Like, what made you come back? You were there. What made you come back to Australia? So we actually went over to the US. We became really distracted because everything in the US is, very shiny and new, and you get excited because you're like, oh, I can do this. I can bring this home. Australia really needs this, all related to the health and fitness industry. But at the same time, we were servicing our clients. And we went to a summit. It was an entrepreneur summit, and it was in Silicon Valley. And it was the reason why we went. It was like close to the end of our trip. So we rocked up to this summit, and we were, like the only two females there. It was very early on, like there was a lot of male executives and so on. So we stood out. We had Australian accents, two young females. People were like, who are you and what's your story? And so we just started to talk to a lot of people, talking about balanced nutrition. No one's doing it, but the science says this. So why are we restricting ourselves? Our clients have lost 30 kilos. We're walking examples. We've lost collectively 50 kilos, blah, blah, blah. We want to build a technology. This is how many people we're managing. It's growing this fast, blah, blah, blah. And we had people making offers to us saying, join our incubate program. We'll give you $1 million, $2 million, blah, blah, blah. Like, come to Texas, move to Texas. We'll support you. We'll build this. And we both just knew that we were sitting on something. And we were like, holy shit, we didn't realize how serious this was until we started to actually have conversations with other people. And we knew immediately that we needed to go back home because we knew the Australian market best. And that's where all our clients were. And so we booked our flight home, came home, and we took the business very seriously from that point on. It was like, okay, well, we're committing to this and we're going to build this business because there is a clear demand. We're solving one of the biggest problems in this world: one, obesity, and two, the fact that people have a really poor relationship with food, and we eat every single day, multiple times a day. So let's do this. Let's take this seriously and let's really share our message. And it was from that day onwards that the business just completely took off.
So there's so much to unveil and unravel from that.
Yeah.
I think the best place I want to go into is, especially with the integration of AI, there is so much opportunity for anyone to start their own business. And it's almost like a trend where, it becomes so easy and accessible, also more competitive to start a business. But the maintenance of it and making the right decisions, especially because it is a lot of it in the beginning is so emotional. A lot of it's overcoming a lot of beliefs that might limit you getting new skills, which is always painful. And a lot of it is just how much pain can you endure? And I think what most people who get into business or start it, they kind of just go all in and don't kind of think about it. Very similar to the diet approach, really. Like the initial diet approach, it's like, whatever, let me just go in, which is great until you realize, all right, I don't have any money to pay for food now, and I really don't know what I'm doing, and now my clients hate me. And with you, like, it was very evident that you had that experience, you had that rainy day fund, you were ready from a basic needs perspective, and you had that MVP. You knew that it would work to some degree, but you just didn't know how. Um, in that regard, like, what would you say to people who want to get into it, and how would you relate when you first started the things that you did well in order for it to happen that way?
Yeah, so I think what we did at that time, which we didn't realize because we weren't really familiar with business terminologies, we were creating product market fit. And I think that step is so essential at the start of every single business journey. And I've worked with a number of entrepreneurs and people that are looking to take an idea and bring it to life. And the first thing that I say to them is, how can you actually establish product market fit with very minimal investment? Because what you want to do is you want to show that you're able to solve this problem that you believe is happening right now and you've got the solution for. But do people want it? Will people pay for this? Because it's one thing if you're solving this problem, but is there a need and can you monetize? Because if you can't monetize, then what's the point of your business? And are you able to speak the same language to them? Like, do you know who your audience is? And like, where are they? How do they talk? What do they need? How do you actually solve it? Because a problem exists, and for us the problem is that obesity rates are rising, and people can't sustain diets don't work, right? 95% of diets fail. There are a number of ways to solve this problem, right? So why is it that our solution is the one that's going to win? And how is it that, or what, how can we essentially confirm or establish that we can monetize from this as well? And that's the first step, and that's exactly what we did. So we didn't just go from 0 to 100 where we had nothing to a tech product. We actually ran the business for 3 years off Google Sheets, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, on all 3 platforms before we actually invested in technology. And that period of time was creating product market fit. And so we didn't take the leap and go from working full time to running the business until we actually had a clientele. We had shown there was a demand for it. We had enough money at bank to take on 6 to 12 months of no income if we needed to. We had established all of that before we took that first leap. And then also we had 3 years of history and data and income to then invest into the technology platform. We actually had no other choice but to invest in technology because the
Yeah.
business was growing so fast. We simply just could not manage the clientele load anymore. And so it was like, okay, this was our product market fit phase. It was 3 years. We did X, Y, Z. It cost us nothing to be able to do
Mm.
that, but we showed that there was a demand for our product and our solution. And that's when we started to invest more into the business and really grow the business.
I want to dial into that so much. It's 3 years just to get product market fit. People think they're going to be like IPOing in 3, and that's like their first like go at it. And it's extending that time horizon and having that discomfort of going, I might have to literally see no results or not be that well-known business person for that long period of time. And there just has to be a different fuel, some other reason that you're doing it, or some skill that you have to endure pain in order to get there. And I want to know the fact that you were able to have that much money, or save that much money, or even have that foresight to go, all right, eventually we're going to need to be able to tank some living expenses here. And if we're going to invest this much into this app, something needs to be prioritized. In that moment when you went from like spreadsheets to app, like what was that process like? Was there something that you had to take a hit on in your personal life to invest, or was it just all cash flow and that you were able to put in there?
Yeah, so fortunately enough, it was all cash flow. For the first few years of running the business, we did live at home, so that did help. So a lot of the income, pretty much all of the income of the business just stayed in the business, and we were very strategic. So we were very fortunate to have been in a position where we could fully fund the technology through just cash flow. It wasn't cheap, and it still isn't cheap. We've spent well over $10 million on our technology today, and we were bootstrapped all the way. Like, we're now into year 9 of our business journey, all the way up until like 2 months ago, right? So we have fully funded the business ourselves. Marketing expenses, technology, people, everything has been fully funded by the business because we were strategic. And I think that people go into wanting to start a business for all of the wrong reasons, which is financial. But it's like, well, firstly, you're not going to get a dollar until the business is thriving, you're growing, and you sell your business, right? Until you liquidate. Because if you start taking money out of the business very early on, you're not giving the business enough fuel or the resources or the capital it needs in order to fully grow. And so I think that's what people go in with the wrong mindset when starting a business. And so for us, it was like, no, we're growing this business. We ran very lean for the first 3 years. Hell, we still run lean now. Like, my business runs so lean now. But you just need to do it. You run lean as a business, you validate, and then you invest. You validate, you invest, you validate, you do small experiments, and then you continue to invest in the ones that are showing results. And for us, every decision we make today, even though we're 9 years into the business journey and we are investment backed, every decision that we make financially has an ROI. We do not just say, oh, let's do this or buy this or invest in this. It's like, okay, well, we want to do an activation or an initiative or a campaign that's going to cost $200,000. Okay, well, what is that $200,000 investment going to be for the business? What is the ROI? Because if I took that $200,000 and I applied it somewhere else, is that going to give me a greater return of investment or not? So even with a product enhancement or a feature, it's like, okay, well, we're going to use, for this one enhancement, we're going to use 5 engineers for the next month and a half to build out this feature. Well, what is the ROI of that? Because that's coming at a cost to the business. So tell me, is that going to reduce churn by 2%, 3%, 10%? What's that financial return of investment? And it's continually asking yourself and doing the analysis before making a decision very early on in your business journey. And there's going to be risks, right, that you take, absolutely, and some are going to pay off and some are not. But try and make as many calculated risks as you can.
Yeah, completely. I know it sounds relatively boring to talk about numbers, but if you really, really think about it, like understanding just a basic P&L of going, all right, so this is how much money is going into the business. By the time I have to pay for everything, then I can start thinking about giving myself something once I hit the net. After I've paid for all the operations to take place, then I can think about it. Maybe I might have to save some to invest in the future so we don't go like bust tomorrow. And it's realizing that maybe even for the first 3 years, 5 years, you're not actually going to take anything home or barely take anything. That just belief itself, you go, okay, I'm going to get into this and I'm not going to get rich from day one. I have to be willing to build an asset which might make me rich 10 years down the track. And that's why ever since really hitting those pain points and experiencing that firsthand, I'm like, I don't think if everyone knew what it took to get into business that they actually would. And I wonder if you've experienced that with others.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because you say the word like rich, but like, what makes you rich? Because I believe that money isn't what makes you rich. And I think the problem is that a lot of people go into this journey thinking they're going to be rich, but being rich is having experiences and moments and memories and enjoying time with your loved ones. And yes, that may come with financial freedom, absolutely, but you can have financial freedom by working a good 9 to 5 job. Because the minute that you decide to build a business, you're making a commitment. You're making a really, really big commitment. And I say that to a lot of people, and I say, look, if you want to make $10 million, go and build a really good career. Because if you're an executive for 20 years and you're making $500,000 a year, you're going to make $10 million. But to sell a business for over $10 million and liquidate and make $10 million that way, you know, owning a big chunk of your business so that you are getting $10 million in your pocket. And then also capital gains as well. Don't forget that. So you actually get,
Hmm.
6 million of that
Oh
is
yeah.
a lot of effort and a lot of commitment. And sometimes it's just easier to have a well-paying job because at the end of the day, you don't have the responsibility of salaries, overheads, bills payable, ATO, super, everything, right? At the end of the day, it falls onto me. It doesn't fall onto anyone else in my team. It falls onto me. And at 5 o'clock, the workday ends. No one else is thinking about their job, but I'm thinking about every part of my business. I'm dissecting every single decision that we've possibly made. Have we done this right? Have we done that? Was that a good decision? Was that investment? Blah, 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 blah. It doesn't stop. The head noise doesn't stop. Even if you go to Thailand for 2 weeks or Europe for 5 months or whatever, it doesn't stop. You might be closing your laptop, but the brain does not stop. And you need to be okay with that because it comes at a cost of something. So I think that when I do have these conversations with entrepreneurs, it's like, how passionate are you about this? Are you doing this to make an impact, or are you doing this because you want to make money? Because if it's for the money part, you're going to last a year. Maybe not even that. But if it's because it's your purpose and your passion, then this is the right journey for you. And I say this all the time, my partner has been the biggest blessing in my life because he's the complete opposite to me. He's a hard worker. He's got a great freaking career. Like, he does really well. But he's very much all about enjoying the simple things in life: nature, sun, grass, travel, experiences, moments, being present, and so on. And he says to me, like, what is it like? You need to live your life every single day, like as if it's the life that you want to live. Because a lot of people, will plan these holidays and they get to enjoy it for 4 weeks of the year. But he's like, every day should feel like the life that you want to live. And he's like, he asks me all the time, like, what is that for you? And I say to him, I am doing that because I'm building this business. And it's not because I'm building a business. It's because I'm sharing this message, and this purpose and this passion comes from wanting to make that impact in this world. Like, it creates a fire inside of me knowing that I'm able to give people the same experience and chance that I gave myself when I lost 30 kilos, because it completely changes your life. And so my passion is what drives me, not the financial reward. Absolutely
Mm.
not. The financial reward is just a positive, but it all comes down to passion. So it's a simple question: is this passion or is this for income? If it's for passion, freaking go for it. I'll support you. Let's do this. If it's for income, you've really got to question whether this is the right decision for you.
Yeah, yeah. I love seeing the common denominators, especially from that conversation we had nutrition wise, focusing on what you can enjoy in that on the day-to-day basis. Having enjoyed the food that you had yesterday, today, tomorrow allows you to not need to change anything. And that's the very reason why people who are in business stay in business, because they like the game. They enjoy seeing how much more people they can impact, how much more money they can make, which to other people might seem like an obsession, but to them is the reason why they get to that level of success. And it's actually not too hard for them because they enjoy that level of suffering. Whereas if they were to worry about or be more concerned about how much money they're going to make the next year, and that end monetary amount be the reason why where they derive their happiness, it's going to be a tough life because you're not going to get much happiness for a year's time, and
No.
it's not going to keep you in the game.
And you can't control the outcome, right? There's so many, things in our macro environment that you just can't control. We're going through a living crisis right now. The cost of living has, decreased significantly, and every business is taking a hit. right? And so you can't control that. You can't control what's happening in the economic environment. You can't control if a competitor is going to come out tomorrow with something that's going to be far more effective or provide a solution that competes against yours. You can't control that. So yes, you might have these forecasts and the ambition to get to XYZ when it comes to your business income, but it's not a guaranteed. It's not.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
And
completely.
that's most like going into a journey like this is you need to know that. You need to know that this is what the journey is going to look like and you can't control some of the factors that come into play.
Completely. And I mean, talking about living in the future, we'll do a bit of a time warp now. Um, I also started working at Macca's when I was like the second I was 14 because I just wanted to buy myself crap. If you went back and to that like time you were earning like 240 a week and you could send yourself a text being the Forbes 30 under 30 owner of EQ, what would you send them?
I think I would say, you know, it's all going to be okay. And I think that the reason why I say that is because, you know, it this journey is not easy. And it's been, you know, a very challenging journey. Every business journey is a challenging journey, right? And I think there are times in my journey where I'm like, fuck, like, am I doing the right thing? Have I made the right decision? Like, God, you question yourself so many times. So I would say to myself, it's all going to be okay, and you are the right person to do this. Because imposter syndrome is so real. Like, I've never built a business before. Like, who am I to know? You know, I'm making $1 million decisions every single day. Like, I'm just Amal.
Mm.
I'm from the Shire, you know, like just a girl that, you know, grew up in the Shire and doesn't have the business experience except for my journey that I've been on. And so I think I would say it's all going to be okay and you are absolutely the right person to do this.
I love that. And I think that does come back to enjoying it on the day to day. Because if you do think things are going to be okay and at least you're secure within yourself, then no matter what happens on the outside, it's like, doesn't really change too much about it.
No, absolutely. And it's just creating a life that, you know, even though there are challenges and pain points throughout the journey, it's like you find the happiness in all of the other things. So, like, you go, whether it's like journaling, whether it's going and exercising, nourishing your body, going and sitting by the water, reading a book, whatever that looks like, getting a dog, spending time with family, partner. Whatever that may be for you, it's like, yes, you might be going through a really tough time, but in those moments when you can be present and enjoy the things that you love that is outside of your career and your business, absolutely lean into that because that's what's going to get you through.
Absolutely. And I know that in that journey, especially in the game of business, what I find addictive about it is it's very much so a meritocracy. It's based on merit, it's based on your skill set, it's based on whether you are solving a real-time problem. And not too many other factors or biases can come into play there, which is why it's like it's everything's your fault. If something doesn't work, it's your fault. Like there's no one to blame me. um I know this is an interesting question, but I would like to know if a good friend of mine wanted to ask this and if being a female would change any of that.
I think, you know, being a female entrepreneur does absolutely have its challenges. Um, it's funny because a lot of my journey has been a bubble. So I've been in my own little bubble building my business. And so there's not been a lot of external influence because we are solving a problem for other females. So naturally, you know, we understand the audience really well. We speak to the audience. I was my first client. I can relate. So that was not a problem. So growing the business was an issue being female. But when you start to look externally, particularly when you're raising capital, so I actually started raising capital for the first time about 3 years ago, and it was to exit my co-founder. So it was just secondaries. It wasn't to bring on any growth capital. And having conversations with, you know, some VCs, I just think when you're the only female in the room, I think, and it's sad because the amount of female companies that actually get investment is quite low. Um, it's quite daunting, and they really, really question your ability to execute. And it's like, well, I'm showing you the numbers. We get a, you know, a 5 times return on investment, marketing investment. Like our ROI is 5 times when you look at our LTV to CAC ratio. So I'm not understanding why you think I'm unable to grow this business because all of the numbers are showing. And there was really no reason as to why they wouldn't progress. Like, it was just like, oh yeah, this one's just not for us. But it's like, well, this business is profitable. We've been fully bootstrapped. We've built our own technology, blah, 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 blah. But I felt like that created some limitations and challenges. Thankfully, I'm backed by a female-led fund. So I do have investors that support females only, which, is incredible. And everything happens for a reason. So all of those conversations that I had with other VCs and other investors didn't work out because now I've got an incredible cap table with the most incredible supportive investors. But I think that, yes, absolutely being a female has caused some challenges, and then it makes you doubt yourself as well, because when you're raising capital and you can't close a round, or, it's kind of like dating. They show you that they love you the first day, and then you go on another date and another day, and they still are showing that they love you, and there's no red flags. There's none. They're like, you're ticking all the boxes. You meet our criteria, and then it's just a no. You're like, what? It's like this, right? And you start to doubt yourself. But I think that there are some challenges for females for when it comes to raising capital and fundraising, but I think there are some incredible funds out there that are solving that problem, which I'm really glad to see.
If you were to forecast, or at least go back to what in that moment fueled you, or at least you use, because as an entrepreneur, we kind of like stimulus response. We really need to use everything to be able to push us forward rather than the inverse. What do you think in that moment what's that shift that happened where you're like, they didn't accept me because I'm a female, or they're kind of doubting me and I have a suspicion it's because of this. I'm going to change this. Like, what was there something like that?
To be honest, you just keep going. And that's because there is no plan B. I don't have, another option. This is my plan A to Z. And so that was embedded in my mindset, is that, well, if they don't like me, then they're not right for me. Or they don't, want to support me because I'm female, or they have doubts, or whatever, whatever it may be. Then they're not the right partners for me. And that's not someone that I want invested in my business, sitting on my cap table. And so you just keep moving. You just keep going. You have more conversations and you find the right partners.
I look at that and I hear confidence, and I'll define confidence as a very, very large, irrefutable fact or amount of evidence, and instead of it just being like a mental thing. Um, where do you think you got that evidence from?
I think it really just comes down to, this being my purpose. I just know. I just know that this is the path for me, and I just know that this is such a positive impact that we're making on the world, and so that gives me the confidence. It fuels my confidence to keep going. And so it's like, okay, well, you don't want to invest in my company, then cool. I'll just move on to the next person. Yeah, I think it just really comes down to knowing that this is my purpose. You can't, you just,
You can,
it's kind of like you just get it done. It's just like, okay, well, this didn't work out. Okay, let's go next one, next one, next one, next one.
yeah,
And you
yeah, yeah.
just, I'm very familiar with just like fundraising and raising capital and so on. I'm very much in that world now. I've done it twice. And, you hear about stories where investors are backing companies that have just an idea and they're raising $70 million, right? And I'm like, this company hasn't even validated or has any income, and you're supporting them. I have a profitable business that has 9 years of history that shows such a positive return on investment, like incredible. For every dollar we put in, we get $5 back in marketing. Like, this is a safe bet for them. So
Yeah.
that, for me, knowing that they're taking those, big risks, and a lot of them don't work out, it's like, well, I'm actually like, we've validated and shown that we're a good investment
Mm,
for businesses. So, I think also just being familiar with just fundraising and hearing about the crazy things that people raise capital for. And I'm like, well, ours isn't so crazy. So surely there's someone that's going to, take that bet and back us.
exactly. Like a 5x ROAS at your scale is unreal. And yeah, like you see the stats every day. You see you see the stories. I'm sure coming from marketing, you promote those stories quite a lot, even within the house to increase conviction, and like and even to yourself, the conviction's there. You see it every day. The stats don't lie. And I can only imagine what that feels like. It's like, this is what I'm doing. Like, I wonder if you look back, um, if you ever look back and feel grateful, are there specific moments that where that takes place most?
Honestly, I'm just grateful for the entire journey, every bit of it. You know, the ups, the downs, the lows, the highs, the pain, the happiness, every single bit. I wouldn't change it for the world because it's brought me to where I am today. And so, you know, at the time I go through something, I'm like, I don't know why I'm going through this. I don't understand. There's been, you know, really big challenges that we've faced. And it takes a period of time out of that to make you realize why you've gone through what you did. But I say that business is one of the biggest character building things that you could ever do. It's just like owning a business, and it's really shaped who I am as a person. So yeah, just grateful, full stop. Not grateful for anything in particular, just grateful.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It actually makes me curious because when you get awards like Forbes 30, Under 30, or maybe Deloitte Fast 50, internally, are you grateful for like what goes in your mind when you get, I guess, appreciated for things like that?
Yeah, it's funny because in this journey, particularly when you're at the top, so when you're running the business or you're the founder, you don't get a lot of acknowledgement or, um, you know, I guess credit for anything that you do. So you're like kind of like having to be like, yep, good work, which you don't do very often, right? I don't remember the last time I said good work to myself. So when you do win awards or recognition or whatever it may be, it's always just such a reassuring feeling that you're on the right track because you're hearing it from the external. So, you know, you give a lot of praise to your team because absolutely you should. You know, at the end of the day, I will tell my team how great they are at every moment that I possibly can. But it's not going to be the same thing back because they're not going to sit there and be like, you're so great. You did well. Congratulations, Amal. Like there's moments, of course, where, you know, I raise capital and we close the deal and they're like, really well done. Proud of you. But when you do you win an award or you're recognized for whatever it may be externally, it's always like a little reassuring, like, okay, I'm on the right track. I've done something, but it's so, I don't know, it's so superficial at the end of the day. You know, Forbes 30 under 30 is such a great achievement and, you know, Deloitte Fast 50, but it, you know, it lasts for one day and then the next day, tomorrow's, you know, you have forgotten that you are on Forbes 30 under 30 and you're back to the same shit that you do every single day, right? It's just that little small reminder. It's like, hey, you actually know how to do business. Well done. Really. So yeah, you do get very proud, but regardless, like it doesn't change or shape the journey. You know, it's just a small reminder. It's not a big part of the journey.
It comes back to the central theme of this convo, which is if you enjoy on the day to day, you'll be right.
Absolutely. And it's not like you should be working towards that. I think they just come up when they need to. And you know, we got nominated a lot when we first started the business, and I started to get nominated again most recently for a lot of other awards. And I was actually saying to my partner, I'm like, do I, you know, complete the nomination? Do I actually run for the award? Blah, blah, blah. I think there was 3 that I got nominated for this year. And I just decided not to. Because I'm like, you know what? I'm not ready to again yet. I'm not ready because I feel like there's a little bit more that I want to achieve before I can get recognized for it. And I think the time that we got Forbes 30 under 30 and Deloitte Fast 50, we saw like incredible growth for the business. We were growing at like 987%. You know, it was very early stage of the business. And I think that itself could be recognized. And I think there are some little things that I've been working on over the last 3 years that I'm like, okay, they're not done yet. And I don't think I want that recognition until that part of the business journey comes to an end. And so now it's like, it's kind of like, okay, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready to, you know, continue on with these nominations because I want to, when I step on that stage or I accept an award or whatever it may be, I want to know that it was the right moment in my business journey, whereas they
Yeah.
were, and I'm still not there yet. So there's still a bit more
Yeah.
growing and, you know, to do.
It's great. It's crazy, and there's always something else. Like, where do you want to go? Like, let's just say over the next few years, is there something on like, close to heart that you want to achieve?
Yeah, I think it's really that scale at the end of the day. So we're building, you know, solutions to amplify our scale. So really leaning into distribution. I think the last few years, a lot of it was building the product. So we have spent a lot, like I said, well over $10 million on our technology. But we have really tried to create and evolve the product to become really sticky. And our platform is sticky. Our users are using it for over 17 minutes a day, right? It's a sticky platform. And so I'm proud that we've achieved that. But for me now, it's really that scale and that distribution, and not only being an Australian company and recognized in Australia, New Zealand, it's really just having that scale globally so that we're solving that same problem for the world as opposed to just solving it for Australia and New Zealand, but in other ways that allows distribution to become more seamless, and really just impact the lives of so many more people.
Looking really forward to that. Amal, thank you so much for jumping on and sharing.
Thank you, David. I've loved speaking to you.